What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create your first Windows form project using C# code in Microsoft Visual Studio. This will cover a basic introduction to buttons, radio buttons, labels, checkboxes, drop boxes, combo boxes, as well as the basic way that Visual Studio, C# code, and Windows Forms all work together. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here by creating a new project. Just to show you, you should be familiar if you have Visual Studio. You should be familiar enough with this loading page. And what we're gonna do is create a new project. And this has a lot of filters in it. But basically, if you put C# in there and you select that you want like a Windows app or a Linux app or anything like that, or you want a Windows Forms project, you just need to know what kind of project you're looking for, because otherwise you can just clear all your filters and search across everything, but then it gets kind of hard to figure out what you want to do. We want to use the WinForms user interface, and we're going to use .NET Framework, so use the C# Windows Forms app and just hit next. And then for this project, we'll just call it Intro to WinForms, like that, okay? And hit enter and create. And it's going to go through and do all of this setup for you, but it's basically going to give you initially a form1.cs, which is a design page. It should look just like this. And then you're going to have a C# program that's called program.cs affiliated with this, okay? And what's really nice about this versus like Python, which we do a lot of stuff for on the channel, is this in particular has this library, basically this builder tool in Visual Studio that already has buttons, checkboxes, radio boxes. It's kind of like the built-in library you get with Kivy or like tkinter, where there are buttons and labels already existing. But this tool is actually really friendly to someone who's not a creator natively. So like if you want a button on your form, you could drag it right in. So we'll go ahead and throw 2 buttons on here. You can drag them right in, and then we say, okay, well, I want 2 buttons, and then underneath those buttons, I want a label. It's really easy. So without any coding, I've already created a form that looks roughly the way I want it to look. So if you're a beginner in programming, this kind of creating a Windows form can be a really easy way to initially create the app. And then as we'll see in just a second, the way you insert the functional code for what those buttons and labels should do is pretty straightforward if you know how to use the tools. So let's go ahead and put 2 buttons in a label, and then let's show some of the radio buttons. And I'm just basically going to show some of the most common things you might see in a Windows form here. And even once you drop it on the form, it's really easy to rearrange it. Modern Visual Studio installs even have like these alignment shortcuts. So I don't know if you can see the thin blue lines on my screen, but it'll snap to things that it thinks make sense to align to. So if I have 3 radio buttons, it'll line them up kind of for me as I put them here. So I'm going to put 4 different types of things on the screen and then a label for each of them to kind of show how we can use that. And so we'll do radio buttons, we'll do regular buttons, we'll do some checkboxes. We'll do right here, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. There's a separate thing that's a checkbox list. You can put numerous options in there, or you can just do these regular checkboxes. Checkbox list is going to basically follow everything we talk about for checkbox here. And then let's do a combo box, which is like a drop-down menu of options. And then let's go ahead and put another label on here. So you can build a lot of really basic and yet still super powerful Windows forms just with the stuff we have on the screen. And if you have your window set up the same way I have mine set up, I like to keep the Solution Explorer over on the right and then the Properties window available. If you don't have certain things, like you don't have the Toolbox open or the Solution Explorer or Properties open, you might just need to go up to View and select what you want visible. When you're designing a Windows form, it's a really good idea to have your Solution Explorer open, because you'll be jumping back and forth between the design portion of it and the programming portion of it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at how to make these buttons update label 1. So I can see just from clicking on it and then looking down properties, the properties, the name of our label is label 1. So you can change it if you want. You could call it like button label or something like that. You can also change the default text that shows up in your design here. But basically what I want to do is just double click on this button, and it's going to take me into the form1.cs program, so the C# programming, and you see all this stuff automatically populated using system, using all of these different things. You don't have to create that with Visual Studio. It's made for you when you create the project. And then it also will create the namespace like we've taken a look at in past projects. And then it sets up everything you need to just be right on the button 1 click commands already. So what we want to do with our button 1 click command is just take a look and say, okay, when I'm clicked, I want label 1 dot text. So the property that says what the actual text of label 1 is going to read out. I just want to set it equal to button 1 clicked, like that, and then make sure you finish it with a semicolon. And what you'll see now, if I go back and I just hit this start button, then it's going to actually boot up the form for me. And then if I click on button 1 and I did this right, bam, button 1 clicked right there. So button 2 doesn't do anything yet, but we're going to fix that right now. So we're going to just double click on button 2, and you'll see this wasn't here a second ago on this form1.cs, but once I double clicked on the button, it said, okay, we're writing code for what happens when that button gets clicked. So just as a really easy beginner tutorial, you could type all of this in manually and you could create this without looking at the design page. But why would you when there's such a good shortcut for you right here? So now we have these 2 buttons that'll tell us which button was just clicked. Let's go ahead and take a look at how to do the same thing with the radio buttons for the label 2. Okay, so I'm going to double click on the first radio button, and I'm going to steal this line of code because actually what we're doing is when it's changed. So we want to say, okay, when the radio button is clicked, then we want to say, we'll say option 1 clicked, but now we want to update label 2 text, okay? And so if I come back and I do radio button 2, I'm just going to steal that and say that option 2 was clicked. And there are ways, if you want, there's a really easy to read literature on Microsoft's page of how to use window forms, and they'll show you all the things. You don't have to do check changed. You can do check selected, check unselected. So it's basically like checking, like if you were talking about mouse click, you could check on high transition, on low transition, basically when it became true, when it became false. The default is either change. Okay, but so right here now, what we'll see if and I think I made it label 3, but it should be label 2. There we go. What we'll see now if I run this, hopefully, and everything's working correctly, is button 1 and button 2. We'll change this between button 1 clicked and button 2 clicked, and just tell you whatever was clicked last. But if I select a radio button, option 1 clicked, option 2 clicked, option 3 clicked. There you go. So just like that, we have radio buttons and regular buttons. Now you're saying I wouldn't want to create a form that necessarily just told me what was clicked. That's true, but what you would want to do with those buttons and radio buttons is write actual C# code, which I've been showing you how to do with other tutorials, and you can sort of learn the concepts for how to do different projects as you need them. So this is an introduction to WinForms. We'll definitely use these forms going forward in a lot of our future projects. So let's go ahead and take a look at the checkboxes. And pretty similar to what the radio buttons do, their default is checking changed. And so I will just say, now there's label 3 text. I'm just going to say whatever one was changed most recently, so you can see like selecting or deselecting a checkbox is going to overwrite the label as the most recent thing that happened. So when I click on any of the boxes to select or deselect these in my app, it's going to say that that was the most recent thing that happened. So if you wanted this to only check if I click something and I select it, so I put the check in there, you'd need to change this from check changed to like check selected. Again, all of that literature is online, super easy to find. So we're going to do it this way. And then the combo box is the last thing I want to talk about in this tutorial, and I'm trying to keep this concise. The combo box is a little different because you have to start. If you click on it, it'll just tell you the default is going to be what to do when you select something new. So if you selected the first option and then you clicked on the box again and you selected the first option again, nothing would happen, but that kind of makes sense because it's assuming you only want that action to happen when you've selected it. But what you have to do is you have to actually put the objects in your combo box before running the program. And to do that, it's pretty easy. You just come up to where you've initialized the components and you just want this combo box one.items.add command like this. And you just put in quotations here what you want the different options to read. So I'm just going to make 3 and I'm going to have them say option 1, option 2, and option 3. But basically you need this up in the initialize because you don't want this combo box to be empty. So right when you boot your project up, you need to have, and they're all combo box 1, not 1, 2, 3 there. There we go. You want, when you boot the project up, that you have these different options. And so this way, what we'll do with this one that's a little bit different is we'll say, okay, label for.text, just like the other ones. But what we want this to be equal to is whatever option is actually selected. So the text says option 1, option 2, and option 3. And so we'll actually use the text from the combo box. So we'll say combo box 1 dot text like that. And then we can append, we can concatenate another string to it just like this. So we can say combo box 1 text. So that'll say option 1, option 2, or option 3 when we select something. And then plus this string that just says selected. And that's what we'll put on the label for. Okay, so let's go ahead and boot our project up again. And let's take a look at the checkboxes. So we've still got these buttons working and these radio buttons working. Now, if I check a checkbox and then I check 2, what you'll see when I was talking about a little bit earlier, if I uncheck 1 now, it's still registering that as a change. So the default event for checkboxes is checking anytime it changes. So you just need to update it to only look at when it's selected or deselected if that's not what you want. But then you can see in my combo box, I have these 3 options that populate because I set them right in the beginning in initialize. So if I grab option 2, now the label says option 2 selected, and then this says option 1 selected, which is great. I'll show you one more trick with the combo boxes right now that may come in handy. One other way that you could do this is instead of combo box 1 text plus selected, say you wanted to have a readout somewhere of the index of what item was selected. So on that combo box, obviously the text says option 1, 2, or 3. But as you probably know in the programming world, indexes usually start from 0. So actually option 1, which is the first item we add, has an index of 0. And you can see what index is selected by instead of this saying text, we'll say combo box 1 dot selected index. So this is just to show the combo boxes and all of these different widgets that we've dropped on our forms have a lot of different ways that you can use them inside your projects. So let's go ahead and see what looks different now. Okay, so I boot this up and I say, well, I'm going to select option 1. It actually says 0 selected because the index is 1 value behind those numbers that we typed in. So that should make sense to you. But it's just a way, if you had a dictionary, let's say, that said, okay, here are my options 1 through 10 or 0 through 9, whatever. And then here's the text that I want to show on the screen. You could set up a for loop that says for item in this dictionary, go through and add the text for each key as an option under the combo box. But then what you would actually do with the items in the combo box would be based on the index value of them. So it's just one additional way that you can use a combo box. This obviously isn't a form that does anything, so maybe it's not super practically useful that you would want to build this specific project, but this is a basic introduction to buttons, radio buttons, checkboxes, labels, the Windows form application in Visual Studio, and how it sort of correlates with C# code, and then also combo boxes and dropdowns. So hopefully you found this useful. Be on the lookout for additional C# and Python code coming out every week. Be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you found this useful and you want to stay up to date on tons more great content. And let me know if you have any questions or what you'd like to see in the future in the comments on this video. As always, thanks for watching and good luck with your code. Thanks, bye.